Namaste. My name is Swami Dumavati, and I come to you today from Kashi Ashram in Sebastian. And in case you don't know, this is a residential community that has interfaith community that has been here since 1976. It was founded by Ma Jaya, whose picture you can see in the middle there, a American-born guru from Brooklyn. And on this side you see her guru, Neem Karoli Baba, and on her other side is Swami Nityananda, her main teacher. So today we're going to be talking about commitment, and it's actually very timely because in our community we are using this time of COVID to really dig into our internal structures, if you will, and how this lineage passes on. Ma Jaya left her body 8 years ago, and we have been finding our way into the future. And commitment is a big part of that. Our community is comprised of people who have been part of our community for decades, really deeply committed to their spiritual path. But how do we grow that into the future? How do we nurture that sense of devotion, of deep longing for a spiritual path? How do we share that in others? How do we nurture that in others? So a very timely topic for us, for me, for sure. And yeah, so commitment, many different kinds of commitment, right? I mean, we make commitments, little commitments, and we make big commitments. And whether that's to our health, right? If we have a health crisis or we struggle with our physical body, we have to make a commitment to take care of this body that we have been given. We make commitments to relationships, to partners, to our kids, right? We make commitments to our jobs. But really today we're here to dive into the concept of commitment to a spiritual path, to spiritual growth, to what it is that feeds and nourishes us, to our spirit, nourishes our spirit. So a little bit more nebulous perhaps in some ways, but still really important. And from my perspective today, we're going to be talking about really a Vedic yoga commitment structure, if you will, or guideline, or guidelines that have been set down for several thousand years. So specifically, though, everybody's heard about yoga, and we have yoga studios on every corner, but what is a yogic lifestyle? What does that look like? And is it just doing these stretches, these asanas, these postures, which are fabulous? Or is there more to it? And there is, of course. So there are several different kinds of yoga schools, if you will, but the one that we'll particularly address today is Raja Yoga. And within Raja Yoga, we will specifically address Patanjali's sutras. So he wrote these sutras, these sacred writings about 2,000 years ago. And within them, he described yoga as having an 8-limbed path. And the 8th limb, the kind of ultimate goal of that 8-limb path is what we call samadhi. So samadhi being the place of oneness, of union with your beloved. And that can be, there are many layers to that state, but we may all, if we are lucky enough, have tasted just gotten a taste of that place. And really yogic practice and these 8 limbs are really the disciplines, the process to arrive more and more often at this place, samadhi. And ultimately, while we're living in the world, if we can go in and out of that place, if we can access it, that union with our beloved, more frequently and bring that essence into our lives, into our body, into the world around us, that's an accomplishment. So the foundation of the 8-limb path are what are known as the yamas and the niyamas. So the yamas are a little bit like, if you like, the 10 Commandments in Christianity. They are the moral conduct that society adheres to. One of those is, you will know that, is ahimsa, which is non-violence. So that's very much Gandhi, Martin Luther King, that principle of not hurting others. And non-stealing, not greedy, all that sort of the yamas. But today we're going to go into the next limb of the 8-limb path, and that is the niyamas. And that is really our personal conduct. And the personal conduct includes things like purity, so bathing, cleansing your mind, cleansing your body, self-study, discipline. These are all things to help us, guide us and get us ready for this, in this yogic path. And the one we're specifically going to talk about today is called Ishvara Pranidhana. So Ishvara is the Lord, the beloved. And Pranidhana is really surrender or devotion. So this concept of surrendering to the divine, surrendering to our beloved, is a pretty universal concept, even within 12-step, right? You have 12-step is turning our will and our lives over to the care of God. So this is very much the surrender, giving up our individual will to the greater, the higher power, the divine guidance. So Ishvara Pranidhana. And in our yoga teacher training manual, teacher training goes through these yamas, the niyamas, the foundational steps, and these words particularly drew my attention about Ishvara Pranidhana, this devotion to the Lord, to your beloved. Choose the path of fearless awareness, directly engaging in the evolution of your own soul. Become the spiritual warrior in the battle within, slaying your own ego. Become an instrument of God. Choose to be absorbed in love as we transcend fear. Right? Each one of those sentences is just packed with wisdom. Choose the path of fearless awareness, directly engaging in the evolution of your own soul. Right? This is an active participant. It isn't even within our surrender. We are actively surrendering. We are actively engaging in that. And this concept of being able to evolve our soul. I mean, like, really? Wow, that's amazing to even contemplate that. How does our soul evolve? Become the spiritual warrior. I love that spiritual warrior image. I just like, yeah. Facing our inner demons, right? This is really about facing our inner demons. It isn't outer work. All this is about inner work and doing battle with our ego, slaying our own ego. Like, that's hard to do because the ego is so slippery and so tells us such a bunch of lies and is really hard to pin down. So, but this is a universal battle, right? Each one of us is participating in it to a greater or lesser extent, and this has been going on since the beginning of humanity. These yogic guidelines are thousands of years old. This is from a wisdom that is truly universal, and I love that. Become an instrument of God, right? St. Francis of Assisi, make me an instrument of thy peace. I mean, it's just like, whew, yeah, gets my heart. It's good. And then this last part, choose to be absorbed in love as we transcend fear. And today, in these challenging times of COVID, of not knowing what the next day is going to bring, worrying about our health, our family, our loved ones' health, how to navigate these times, and let alone the economy, choose to be absorbed in love as we transcend fear. So that's twice that fear has come up in this. Choose the path of fearless awareness. So really going forward with courage, with with courage to look at what is, honestly, without illusion. Choose to be absorbed in love as we transcend fear. And I love, John Lewis just passed away. God bless his wonderful soul and his words of wisdom around choosing love instead of hate and being in your heart is just, he has so much wisdom. And big shout out to John Lewis and all the modeling that he did for so many people in so many ways through in the face of such violence and hatred, and yet remaining true to your heart and to your soul ultimately. So I wanted to share um, last time I spoke with you all, I shared some words from Majaya's book, The 11 Karmic Spaces. And these spaces of where we get stuck, right? Where we trip up, where we can our ego backs us into a corner and we're like, oh, I don't know how to get out of here, right? And these are very universal spaces: jealousy, anger, pride, all these things. You're like, oh yeah, right? They're real familiar. And in this structure, if you will, that was put around these teachings, Ma had these things that she called the karmic graces, these um, points of light within the darkness of the trap of ego, these points of light that we could turn to and use to help us get out of those places, those stuck places, the karmic graces. And specifically, so she had different karmic graces that we could use for different situations, though truly they were actually universal. But she saw that these particular graces helped in particular circumstances. Um, so she has this one about commitment relating to attachment. So attachment is the last karmic space. And Ma writes about this space of attachment as being the master of all the karmic spaces, that its attachment is like the last thing to be let go of. Like, we can clean up all this stuff and we're doing great, but attachment is so sneaky, where we hang on to things that aren't important, that aren't um, authentic. Even she talks about our misunderstanding of what love is, and how our propensity is to love with attachment rather than in a detached manner, and how that creates stickiness, if you will, kind of a possessiveness about love that isn't true love, that it's condition, it creates conditional love, and that true unconditional love is not possessive. It is not attached. It is detached, which is very challenging. I know that's a very hard thing to embody and practice. So I wanted to share this, what she wrote about commitment in regard, just this context of attachment, right? And so getting out of attachment, and specifically, she calls this commitment to the soul. And I just love that. I think it's so big, right? It's like, um, it's the ultimate commitment. How can you make a commitment that's any bigger than that? You can't, right? The soul, if we believe that the soul is eternal, and we're committing to that element within us that is eternal, that lives on beyond our death, that goes, that was alive before we took form, before we were born, right? So we're committing to that part of us. Like, wow, that's the ultimate commitment, right? So just sharing her words about this. Death is the greatest teacher because it shows the futility of all attachment. Do you truly think you own your own body? You know better. If you have been to a funeral and heard those magnificent words, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, there is only one thing that is certain in this life, and that is the soul. All else changes, all else flows. But to seek the very substance that your soul is made of is to seek eternal life. The attachment to your own higher self eliminates all other attachments. This is because all else pales in comparison to it. Two objects cannot be in the same place fully at the same time. One takes more room, or one pushes the other out. But how do you make a commitment to your soul? Just by wanting it. That means giving up things you don't need, one by one, bit by bit, a pattern of anger, an attachment to someone, a habit of negativity. What's left is the soul and the soul's joy. That's what this whole book really is, an instruction manual to help you find your soul. The details are different for each person because we have different patterns of attachment, different karma, but the broad outlines are clear. So when I think of commitment to the soul, to me that means spiritual path, right? And when I think of the spiritual path, I think of it a little bit like in the beginning, it's sort of like dating, right? You're kind of trying out different paths, perhaps. Not everybody does, but I certainly did. Um, you're trying them out, and oh, does this fit? Oh, I like that, but it isn't quite right. I'm not ready to commit. I'm not ready to commit to that spiritual path. But once you find, if you will, the right person, the right spiritual path for you, and feel to make a commitment to that path, wow, right? And this is like marriage, if you will. You found your partner, the person who makes your heart open and brings you joy. And here it is in a spiritual form, the spiritual path that lets you go deeper within yourself. This path that lets you explore the darkness, the pain within you. And sometimes this path winds, very often it's not a straight line, right? We have to kind of feel our way to the next step sometimes. And to consciously choose to be with what we call satsang or sangha, people who are also on a spiritual path, that helps us, that gives us strength, that can help lead and guide us in finding our way on this spiritual path. And I posit that for me, I should say that listening to our heart is the best guide to find that way forward on the spiritual path. And within the heart, cultivating our own passion, finding those things, those places that make our hearts overflow and just sing, those places of joy, and also cultivating yearning. That may sound strange, but that yearning for that deep, deep love, that experience of oneness, that samadhi, yearning for it, and really saying, I am worthy. I am worthy. I deserve that. That is my birthright. So let's end our session today with a few minutes of just turning inwards, of getting quiet. So if you're able to close your eyes, and turn your focus inwards. Allow the quiet to settle around you. And with your breath, breathe into your heart. Breathe into that magnificent, beautiful heart in the center of your chest, right? The spiritual heart is said to be in the center of the chest. The physical heart is to the left. Take a moment. Take a moment to check in with your heart. Allow yourself to feel what your heart is holding this moment. And if there is pain in any form, suffering, anguish, grief, fear, whatever burden you are holding in your heart, and we all carry burdens all day long, some big, some small. Breathe into that heaviness, that tightness, nice and deep so you can stretch into it. And on the exhale, let it go. Let it go. Release. Release. And in the next breath, again, breathe deeply into the heart. Feel the boundaries of the heart stretching, perhaps physically, your chest expanding wider, deeper, allowing the heart to fill. And bringing your awareness up to your throat. The throat, the place where we have the opportunity to express our heart, to put into words our thoughts and feelings, and having the intention of using our words wisely, with kindness in regard to others. And bringing the breath up to the third eye, between the eyebrows and the forehead. This is the place of our intuition, our inner wisdom, the place of listening. Know with a certainty that you hold the answers to all life's questions. Nothing is outside of us, though we sure do a good job of looking around outside. Everything is inside. And following the breath and the energy upwards now to the top of the head. And visualizing a 1,000-petaled lotus on the top of the head, this beautiful, beautiful flower with its 1,000 petals basking in the light of the sun above us. And let yourself go for a moment. Let yourself go into the oneness, into the spirit body that knows no separation, no separation physically, no separation in time, this timeless, spaceless space. Feel your connection to the divine, to your beloved. Know that this space is available all the time. We can't live and function in the world here, but we sure can commit to taking the time to visit it, to remember it, to deepen this connection, and then bring it with our breath into our body and into our lives. So let's do that, taking a breath in to the top of the head, breathing in that essence, and bringing it down to the third eye, breathing into the third eye, and bringing the essence down to the throat again, breathing into the throat and down to the heart. Feel the heart nurtured and full and grateful. And taking a deep breath into the heart, opening your eyes. Namaste, everybody. Thank you for being here today, and I wish you joy on your path, whatever form that might take, knowing that commitment is the glue that carries us forward, wherever that spiritual path may take us and lead us. Enjoy the journey. Namaste.